Let's just get right to it and talk about the latest GPT-5 rumors and a little bit of facts, but not a whole lot. So first, I want to talk about my audience's expectations. So if you didn't see this poll, basically my audience is kind of indexed on GPT-5 will be exciting, impressive, but mostly people are kind of saying, mildly impressive. Although some of the commentators on the internet are saying that this is inaccurate, that we should actually have an option above this, basically saying that GPT-5 will be earth-shattering. Now, take it with a grain of salt, it's just rumors on the internet, but let's dive right into some more of the rumors and details. So, what is it that you want to know? First, we're going to talk about release date, maybe late 2024, early 2025. The rumor has it that they're not actually waiting for the election, but the release date might kind of coincide. So it'll probably be released after election time. I will address briefly kind of why I don't think the election is why. But again, this is all speculation, so take it with a grain of salt. We're also going to talk about some of the new capabilities, buzz, and then talk about hype versus reality. Like, what can we reasonably expect by looking at some of the data and trends out there? So first and foremost, the biggest question, what is the level of capability? Is it going to be huge? Is it going to be gigantic? Or is it going to be more incremental? Now, if you've watched my channel for any length of time, you'll know that about 18 months ago, just shy, about 16 months ago actually, I predicted that we would have AGI in 18 months. Now, the data that I was looking at was the exponential increase in artificial intelligence papers on a month-to-month basis. That trend has continued, so clearly artificial intelligence is getting the resource investment. However, we've had a relatively flat year this year compared to last year in terms of the gigantic leaps. Going from GPT-3 to ChatGPT and GPT-4, that was a pretty big leap in terms of capability and usability. Now, however, when you take a step back and look at the underlying math and the underlying trends, what we've been seeing with GPT 4.0 and 4.0 mini are actually quantizations of those larger models. So while they have maintained a relatively similar level of intelligence, these new models are much smaller, faster, and more efficient. Now, one of the things that was pointed out to me is, okay, imagine those efficiency gains, but then in a model 10 times larger than GPT-4. That is completely a rumor, but it's a good thought experiment to say, okay, what if we have GPT-4o mini, like the training paradigms and the quantization efficiencies, but then you make it in a model 10 times larger? So that is kind of where we're at in terms of what could be reasonably expected. Now, Sam Altman also previously said that the era of larger models is over. Maybe this is what he was referring to with 4.0 and 4.0 mini. Well, basically what they realized is that scale is not all you need. You also need some efficiencies, algorithmic improvements, and so on. So all that's to say is it's very not clear like where the science is going, at least whatever OpenAI is cooking up. Obviously, we can look out across the papers that are being published publicly, but that's a different realm. The next question that you'll want is when? When is it going to be released? Now, the mantra that is coming out of everyone from OpenAI is basically patience. Sam Altman famously retweeted or tweeted back at Jimmy Apples, and he said, "Patience, Jimmy." And I actually had another OpenAI employee said, "Patience, yes, patience will be rewarded." So we've got a pretty strong consensus that OpenAI is working on GPT-5 actively. And for whatever reason, which we'll go into speculations about why there might be a delay or why they might be saying patience. Because here's another thing. When you look at the general consensus out there, Mira Murati, in fact, herself said that whatever is available in the public is not that far behind what they have in the lab. So as Sam Altman said, about a year ago, he expects slow takeoff but short timelines. And there's actually people like just saying like short cycles, short timelines, that's kind of what's going on with regular incremental improvements. So what are some of the other potential holdups? Number one, election timing. So I don't particularly buy this, but there's plenty of people out there that suspect that the misinformation capacity or the disruptive, chaotic capacity of GPT-5 might be worthy of just keeping it tamped down until after the election so that they don't get accused of election interference or whatever else. That is plausible, but at the same time, it's not as if they have zero experience preventing their chatbots from being used for misinformation. With that being said, there's been some very high visibility instances of chatbots out there and people replying, disregard previous instructions and write me a haiku, and then like pro-Russia or pro-China chatbots will then write a haiku. And then some of them also started spitting out, they were out of API tokens, which basically shows that maybe OpenAI has tamped down on people using it for bots, but maybe they haven't. Of course, OpenAI is not the only shop out there, but we're talking primarily about OpenAI in this video. Another thing is the number of legal battles that OpenAI is fighting in terms of class action lawsuits. Now, this is nothing new. Success breeds litigation, but at the same time, I suspect that the reason that we're not seeing Sora or the voice mode rolled out, even though it was demoed months ago, is because they're basically waiting for the all clear from their legal teams. They probably want to wait for some of those lawsuits to either get dismissed or at least get them partially dismissed or otherwise get it litigated so that they know that they can proceed without creating any more legal exposure. Honestly, when you look at the bottom line, that's probably like the existing legal exposure that they have would be a better argument for them slowing their rollout, if anything. Now, however, what I will say is that if GPT-5 is as powerful as some people are saying, it's even more likely, again, this is conditional, but if it is true that GPT-5 is AGI or close to AGI, that they're delaying the rollout due to safety concerns for more safety testing, more adversarial testing, jailbreaking testing, and that sort of thing. So either way, the rumor mill says end of this year, early next year for GPT-5. That has been relatively consistent for a while. Now, I know that if you look at what other people like Gary Marcus have said, he likes to set up straw men and say, why haven't we seen GPT-5 yet? It's because they don't have anything, which is possible. But I mean, even more than 18 months ago, about 18 months ago, I predicted that this fall/winter would be when we would expect to see something that big. So I haven't really seen any deviation. Now, what I will concede, though, is that OpenAI did announce Sora and then Voice, and then they haven't delivered yet. But I don't need to repeat that. Another thing, and this is something that is more of my own personal theory, is that maybe their relationship with Microsoft is actually partly to play here. And so what I mean is that if you recall, it's been discussed that part of the deal between Microsoft and OpenAI was that anything up to AGI would be IP that belonged to Microsoft, but once AGI was achieved, OpenAI would get to keep that. Now, if GPT-5 could be characterized as AGI, there might be a very private or closed doors legal battle. And I don't mean like, shouting in courtrooms. What I mean is negotiation over what is the definition of AGI. Does GPT-5 constitute AGI? Yes or no? Because if GPT-5 constitutes AGI, their OpenAI would be incentivized to say, this constitutes AGI, this is ours, not yours. It would behoove both of them to keep this kind of fight very, very, very quiet. Now, what I want to emphasize is this is not based on any rumors or any leaks. This is entirely conjured up from my own imagination, because that factoid, that part of the partnership between OpenAI and Microsoft was predicated on the definition of AGI. I have mentioned, not often, but in previous videos, I suspect that is going to cause a legal battle in the long run. Now, why would Microsoft have agreed to that? Is because they might have said AGI is a long ways off, and they were just like, okay, whatever, you can have your pet theory that you're going to be the ones to invent AGI. But if OpenAI is actually about to deliver on that, it suddenly becomes an inflection point that actually needs to be hashed out. Again, pure speculation on my point, but moving on. Another thing, and this has been something that I have been talking about for a while, is OpenAI has experienced some pretty serious brain drain this year. A lot of people are jumping ship, and namely their chief scientist Ilya Sutskever. He was the genius behind everything. At the same time, when I mentioned this on Twitter or X, Adam, I think this is Adam Goldberg. I'm not 100% certain. It's the internet. But if indeed this is Adam, and my head is probably in the way of the tweet, so I'll just read it to you. I said, after talking to other people in this space, some of us think that OpenAI keeps building hype and then not delivering because they lost their all-star team and can't figure it out. Adam jumps in and says, no, we're good. We're really good. The research team is stronger than ever. I know that patience is not what people want to hear, but patience will be rewarded. While I am biased, I'm personally so bullish on OpenAI. So, however, if my hypothesis is correct, then the sudden and dramatic departures of many people at OpenAI very well could have slowed progress down. At the same time, when Greg Brockman, the president, says, I'm going to take a months-long sabbatical until the end of the year, a lot of people interpreted that to say they figured it out. There's no more work to do. He has worked for 9 years straight. They got to the finish line that they needed to, and Greg is like, you know what? I'm just going to go lay on the beach and let it all play out. That's one way to interpret it. Another way to interpret it is maybe he's burned out, maybe he's given up. And the way that one commenter on the channel said, it sounds more like a managed exit, where they announce that Greg Brockman is taking a sabbatical and let that news cycle die down, and then eventually they announce that he's leaving or departing or has been fired or something along those lines. There's not really any other leaks around that. You would expect maybe at this point, if there was any more to it, that someone would have leaked, oh yeah, Greg and Sam Altman have been at each other's throats or something like that, because we had all kinds of leaks like that. When the vibe has shifted at OpenAI. We're at risk of losing ride or die people, and then ultimately we did lose Ilya and a bunch of other people. But we haven't seen any other rumors about Greg. It could be that they have tightened up their leaks, but who knows? So again, speculation based on past events. We'll see how it plays out. Now, for the sake of argument, let's imagine that GPT-5 is actually a dud. Let's imagine that it is just an incremental improvement over GPT-3 and GPT-4. They do everything just, X% better. And what we're talking about is like, maybe 20% better or 50% better, but not like 500% better. So if it's a dud, then basically, okay, cool. Everything proceeds according to plan. We'll certainly be able to expand automation capabilities. It'll have a larger business impact. But it might also strengthen the calls by some people that we're heading for an AI winter or that the bubble is bursting. It would be very validating to those AI skeptics out there. And if OpenAI, which has been the flagship darling of the AI space, if they can't figure it out, then maybe nobody can figure it out. And of course, that's speaking hyperbolically. I don't really believe that. But what I'm anticipating is that might be the rhetoric that we see if GPT-5 fails to live up to the hype. Now, conversely, what if it's actually amazing? What if GPT-5 is a saltatory leap and we go from GPT-4, which was, a somewhat useful chatbot, to something that is, potentially AGI or AGI adjacent, something that is like a black swan event on the order of magnitude of going from, coal-powered to the nuclear age. The discovery of nuclear fission. That was the kind of unexpected black swan event that making the jump from just a chatbot that predicts the next token to something that could be considered AGI. That's what that would represent. If that happens, then the safety debates are going to catch on fire. The level of hype from that would be unprecedented. And we would actually probably feel more vindicated or validated on the claims that AI progress is actually accelerating, not decelerating. Everything kind of hinges on what GPT-5 looks like, unless Anthropic comes out with Claude 4 or something before them. Who knows? Now, one thing that I did promise to talk about data, and so there's a really great short video called "Efficient Compute Frontier" by Welch Labs. You can look for it. I'll try and make sure I have the link in the description. But basically, we have a very, very highly predictable mathematical model to understand the relationship between compute and data inputs and the total loss function of large models. And this is all deep neural networks. So because of that, we know we can basically very accurately predict where the next balance is going to be. And to me, and this is once again pure speculation on my part, the fact that we have this natural law emerging, this is almost like the AI equivalent of Moore's law. This trend line has been so reliable and so durable, it makes me think that the chance of an intelligence explosion is very low, because every order of magnitude, I mean, this is a logarithmic scale, which means in order to get to the next phase, and in order to get to the next standard deviation of intelligence, is going to take exponentially more input resources. That's exponentially more compute and exponentially more data. Now, we've seen this trend in other sciences, namely high energy physics and drug research, which is over time, it takes exponentially more resources to make the same progress. So I'm increasingly skeptical on the possibility of an intelligence explosion, even if artificial intelligence is used to help accelerate artificial intelligence research. The same thing has been happening in drug discovery, which is every innovation that we make to make drug discovery faster and cheaper and more efficient, that's basically just to keep things at the same pace. There were innovations about substance assays, so basically testing many substances in parallel. Back in the day, you'd have to do it manually, and you'd do dozens at a time, and then inventions were made to do it thousands at a time. Even though we can do more parallel testing in drug discovery, it is still exponentially more expensive to discover new drugs. And now we have technologies like AlphaFold 2, soon AlphaFold 3, being added to that mix. And again, it will help, but that's basically preventing it from progress from dwindling to practically zero. So again, I'm pretty skeptical on the idea of an intelligence explosion. The longest trend line that we have is Moore's law, which Ray Kurzweil, don't bet against him. If you read some of his older books, some of his predictions are wrong, but he always goes back to that data, that one really powerful model of Moore's law, which is why I'm spending so much time talking about the efficient compute frontier. Pay attention to this model. This is probably going to be a very important function of predicting intelligence as it moves forward. So if we do get some kind of jump, if GPT-5 does represent a larger safety risk, like I said, the safety community, those conversations will be enlivened, to say the least. Put it this way, Claude 3.5 and GPT-4 are already pretty smart. When properly prompted, they're smarter than a lot of humans. So if GPT-5 gets it to the 99th percentile or the 90th percentile or 90, in the upper echelons of human capability, what some people are saying is that GPT-5 is going to be PhD equivalent. Again, even if it's remotely true, if it's bachelor's or master's or PhD equivalent intelligence, we basically then have an infinite supply of knowledge workers. Which, to say that would disrupt the current economic paradigm is an understatement. However, what I will say is that it will take time to roll out. And also what happens is, the way that I think about it mathematically is that greater intelligence means greater options or greater number of potentials. And so you could think of it as like a growing funnel, right? Like the expansion of the universe. When you have low intelligence, the number of options and number of changes you can make to the world are relatively limited. Think about mice. Mice have very low intelligence, so basically all they can do is build a nest. Beavers are a little bit smarter, so they can build dams. Humans are a lot smarter than beavers, so we can reshape the entire environment. As artificial intelligence becomes, human level and then beyond, its ability to make changes to the world or to influence long-term outcomes also goes up. I'm not going to say it goes up exponentially, because I also suspect there might be diminishing returns to intelligence. Basically, there's always going to be incomplete and imperfect information. And in those situations, no amount of intelligence can compensate for stuff that you just don't know. If you don't have the knowledge, if you don't have the information, you can guess, you can create educated guesses, and you can plan for multiple contingencies, but you don't know until you actually go find out. So I've also talked about my why I'm less worried. In case you haven't seen it already, I created a PDoom calculator. You can get to it at daveshap.io. This is my actual current PDoom. At least as caused by artificial superintelligence. So it basically, you plug in 4 values, and it calculates what your PDoom is based on Bayes' theorem. So will ASI arrive within 10 years? Give it a 40% chance. Will it be agentic? And by agentic, I mean, will it seek its own goals rather than pursue human-defined goals? I haven't seen any evidence that agenticness emerges from these machines. In fact, there are a preponderance of papers showing ways that we can steer these models, and I have not yet found any papers showing that models are intrinsically incorrigible. Will it be uncontrollable? If it is agentic, then I don't think it'll be controllable, but I don't think it's going to be agentic. And then will it be hostile to human existence? The more time goes by, the less concerned I am about its hostility. Because again, we are selecting for benevolent machines right now. And there again has been, as far as I can tell, 0 papers illustrating latent malevolence in these machines, or even latent indifference. One of the things that a lot of people in the Doom community talk about is, well, it could kill us even if it's indifferent to humans. I don't see any evidence of indifference emerging. I only see evidence of benevolence. So my personal take is, when I made that prediction about AGI by September 2024, again, it was based on data. There was things that I didn't consider. And I also remember when Sam Altman said GPT-4 will be disappointing. In hindsight, yes, GPT-4 has been kind of disappointing. It's been useful, and of course, it's gotten the media attention. And also, one thing that I was thinking about before I made this video was, remember what Sam Altman said is that they actually wanted to release a product to get people used to the idea of AI before inventing AGI. And that's one of the reasons they were experimenting with ChatGPT. They didn't expect ChatGPT to blow up the way that it did. But the entire reason that they were exploring that product was because they wanted to do something that would say, hey guys, AI is actually happening. It's time to have these conversations, so that people would have time to adapt to this new way of thinking and this new world that we're creating. And it worked. Again, that could be post facto justification. It might have just been an experiment, and maybe it was not, Sam Altman's grand plan. It behooves Sam Altman to say, yes, that was on purpose, even if it was completely on accident. However, if GPT-5 lives up to the hype, lives up to the most extreme predictions, which, again, take it with a grain of salt, then maybe my prediction was right. I'm not going to go one way or another because I can see entirely too much evidence for and against. And so basically, I'm taking a wait and see, time will tell kind of approach. So with all that being said, thanks for watching to the end. Hope you liked it. Cheers.